Well, it's been great talking to you. This is KE5NSY. I'll let you go and I'll be clear on your final. Howdy. Welcome back to another episode of The Practical Camper. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about ham radio and the benefits that it has while you're in a campground. My wife and I are both licensed amateur radio operators in the United States. What that means is that we have access to a select group of frequencies that we can use to communicate in town and while we're in the campground. I primarily use ham radio for my communication in the campground because we don't have cell service out there. A lot of the places that we go camping are in areas with no cell coverage, and it's very, very difficult to communicate. So let's talk real quick about some of the reasons that you may want to look into ham radio, even if you're not going to be trying to talk to people all the time. A lot of people think of ham radio operators as, maybe that old guy that sits in his, spare bedroom talking around the world, talking to people all over, with huge antennas in their yard. Well, that's not necessarily the case. One of the main reasons that I really like having the ability to use ham radio frequencies is because there's a group called Skywarn, and here in north central Texas, anytime you go camping in the spring, it's probably going to rain. And seems like whenever I go camping, we have severe weather as well. Well, the Skywarn group is a group of trained storm spotters, so they go out and they observe the storm and relay that information back to the National Weather Service to let them know, there's a wall cloud forming here, there's a funnel cloud forming here, we have quarter-sized hail at this location in the county. So with one of these radios, I can listen in on that and even participate if needed, and get a very, very detailed weather report where I may be in an area that doesn't necessarily have good coverage, so I can't see my radar, I can't see the local news. We don't have the radio is just going to tell you, Collin County, Denton County, they're not going to tell you there's a wall cloud forming, 4 miles southeast of Bonham State Park, So it's one of those things where if you know and you plan ahead, you can get your frequencies in here and, listen to them while you're camping in the event of an emergency. And it helps a lot because then I can decide this thing is very close, or maybe that storm is, really on the other edge of the county. I don't really need to worry about anything other than the occasional lightning and wind threat. Today we're going to talk about a couple of these radios. First, let's talk about what it takes to become a licensed amateur radio operator. There is a test, but it's not very hard. You can Google a study guide and go take the test after studying for probably just one weekend. The basic class is a technician class operator, and all you have to do to be licensed is take a 35-question multiple guess test, and if you pass, then you have your license. That's all. There's no Morse code, there's no skill demonstration. You can get licensed in a weekend. It costs $14, and your license is good for 10 years. Now, everybody that operates a radio will have to be licensed. This isn't like GMRS, where you can purchase one license and it covers your whole family. Everybody that's going to operate a radio on your campground needs to have a license. But it's fun, so study for it as a family, go take the test, and you can all get licensed at the same time. Okay, let's talk about a couple of the radios that I have. This one here is the Yaesu FT65. This is my standard camping radio. I really like this radio because it's dual band. It does VHF and UHF. VHF stands for very high frequency, and UHF stands for ultra high frequency. This one also will pick up the FM radio bands. Now, you can't transmit on the FM bands, but why would you? When you have classic rock, jazz, and then the late night DJs to listen to, they don't want to hear me. VHF radio is what I primarily use on campgrounds because it also communicates with the radio in my truck. This radio here puts out 5 watts at a VHF frequency, which is approximately 140 to 144 megahertz. The radio in my truck does 65 watts and has a much larger antenna, so its distance can transmit much, much further than a little handheld. The reason we use these and not something like the FRS walkie-talkies that you buy at Walmart or the CB radios of the old days are because these radios are transmit clearer and further than any of those, and there's a lot less interference. I know in the old days when I was growing up, we used to use FRS radios around the campground. It seemed like everybody used FRS radios, and there's not that many channels, so you would bleed over onto other people and you'd hear all sorts of things. And I just really enjoy having a radio that's a little quieter, that I can talk to family and things like that at our campground. So this here would be the radio that I'd recommend if you're brand new to ham radio and just looking for something to use around the campground. It's a Yaesu FT65, and this one here cost me about $100. Baofeng. Now this is a Baofeng UV5R version 2. And this radio here is about $25 or $30 on Amazon, and the antenna's not super good. It'll do great for campsite to campsite, things like that, but this radio is not going to get you the range of, say, one of my others here with a little better antenna. This radio, it's cheap, it's Chinese, and it's hard to program, but for 35 bucks, I hang on to one of these just in case of an emergency, and when I'm maybe working around the house, or need something that I can take that might get a little banged up, or who knows, I may lose the radio. Oh well, if you lose it, it's $35 and you can get you a brand new one with a new charger. This one here is probably the oldest radio I have. This is a Yaesu Vertex VX150. It just does the VHF bands, so it doesn't have quite the interoperability of maybe my UHF band radio as well, but it does a great job. This is the radio that I give to other licensed hams that maybe don't have a radio that I want to communicate with when I'm camping, because it's very easy to operate. I can turn it on and tell them what channel to go to, and then I can lock the keypad so that they are stuck there, and it makes it really easy to just quickly hand it to somebody and say, hey, give me a shout on the radio when you get to the end of the trail, and I'll come pick you up, or something like that. This is my old workhorse. This is the first ham radio that I ever purchased. It's a VX170. I purchased this back in 2007, so it's about 12 years old, and this thing still works very, very well. Super durable, easy to operate, easy to program, and the audio quality and everything is just fantastic. So anyway, these are the ham radios that we use while camping. We also have the one in the pickup truck that's permanently mounted and is much higher powered, and that's great. We use that when we go to Big Bend, because if you've ever been to Big Bend National Park, there's no cell service out there, and it makes communicating vehicle to vehicle much easier. And we like it when we road trip too, and there's multiple vehicles, because even spread out over the course of 15, maybe 20 miles, you can contact each other just to say something real quick. Instead of having to pick up your phone and dial and call somebody, you can contact each other and get in touch relatively quickly, just to say one little thing. So anyway, if you have any further questions about ham radio, leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them and get you licensed. But anyway, thank you for watching. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at practical_camper. And until next time, happy trails.